Hey there, amazing fans! Before we dive into today's drama, don't forget to subscribe, smash that like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support means the world to us. Now, welcome to another relaxing moment with Sugar Stories. Grab a seat, sit back, relax, and let's journey into the story together. Clara Moreau was the sort of woman who turned heads in silence. She didn't need to wear red or speak loudly. Everything about her presence, from the precision of her walk to the softness of her smile, suggested elegance practiced like a religion. To the world, she was a luxury events planner who traveled between Paris, Dubai, and Milan. To the few who really knew her, she was Velvet, the most exclusive companion on the European circuit. She did not work on street corners or in shady clubs. Clara vetted her clients as rigorously as any Fortune 500 firm would screen its board members. She read their eyes, their hand movements, their silences. In her world, men paid not for sex, but for safety, the safety of being seen, heard, and desired without judgment. That was her secret. That was her empire. Clara's flat in Montmartre was sleek and understated, no garish art, just thoughtful textures and warmth. Her wardrobe was curated like a museum exhibit, silk, satin, and custom tailoring. Everything about her life suggested taste, control, and discretion. But Clara's true mastery lay in her ability to make men feel as though they had conquered her, when in fact, they were slowly bending to her choreography. She listened more than she spoke. She knew when to tilt her chin, when to touch a wrist, when to retreat. She was a master illusionist. No one ever knew what she really wanted. And that was precisely why they kept coming back. Her first client of the night was Monsieur Armand Delacroix, a venture capitalist with a failed marriage and a thirst for adoration. Clara greeted him at Hotel Lutetia, where they dined on sea bass and Sancerre. As he ranted about IPOs and betrayal, she sat across him with parted lips and tilted eyes, taking in every word. He left that night lighter, calmer, and 10,000 euros poorer. Later, back at her apartment, Clara logged the session into her encrypted diary. Armand spoke about his daughter's coldness again. Unresolved guilt. Do not touch his left wrist, sensitive nerve damage from past surgery. It wasn't just business, it was emotional architecture. Despite the nature of her work, Clara had never felt exploited. She had rules. Never work drunk. Never stay the night. Never see the same man more than 5 times in a quarter. She wasn't selling her body, she was leasing out fantasy, with contractual boundaries. On weekends, she mentored younger women not to glamorize escorting, but to teach them about safety, financial literacy, and consent. Her small inner circle called her Madame Velvet, half in jest, half in reverence. She had seen too many girls burned out, broken, or buried by the illusion of invincibility. She was determined not to become one of them. Still, there were moments. In the early morning hours, as the city dimmed into silence, Clara sometimes lay awake wondering if she had lost something essential. Love, perhaps. Or innocence. But then she would remember the girl she had once been, 17, broke, desperate, and feel proud. Every silk robe and 5-star suite was proof that she had built herself from dust and danger. She had no illusions about forever. She was saving, investing, planning to exit the game by 40. Maybe open a boutique art gallery in Lisbon. Maybe write a book. But until then, she would play the role of Velvet, with grace and precision. What she didn't know was that her next client, the one who would change everything, had already sent his first encrypted message. A man named Dorian Vale. Dorian Vale's message arrived via encrypted email routed through 3 proxies and a referral code only Clara's top-tier clients ever received. There was no profile, no photo. Just a line of text. I prefer symphonies over small talk. Let's begin with silence. Beneath it, a time and location. The Royal Suite at the Ritz, Paris. Anonymous. Expensive. Intriguing. Clara was cautious, but also curious. There was a poetry to his message that felt calculated, like a test. She accepted. That evening, she entered the Ritz wearing a midnight blue velvet gown with an open back and a scent of white jasmine. The suite was dimly lit, the windows open to the Paris skyline. Dorian was already inside, facing the city. He didn't turn when she walked in. Do you always arrive 3 minutes early? He asked. Clara smiled softly. Punctuality is the beginning of seduction. He turned, finally. Early 40s, tall, clean-shaven, with the kind of face that belonged in a Cold War thriller. His eyes were unreadable, steel gray and searching. They talked for hours. About Schopenhauer and quantum theory, the ethics of power and the illusions of love. There was no physical contact. No flirtation. Just intellect brushing against intellect like flint against stone. Dorian booked her again the following week. Then again. And again. Clara broke one of her rules, seeing the same man too often, but rationalized it. This wasn't lust. It was research. He fascinated her. In the meantime, Clara's business continued to flourish. Her discreet agency, Velvet Circle, had now expanded to 5 European cities. She only recruited women who came with a certain poise, former dancers, linguists, grad students with emotional intelligence. She didn't advertise. Word of mouth was enough. Velvet Circle offered more than companionship, it offered psychological clarity, artistic escape, and confidentiality wrapped in luxury. She was earning millions. By 35, Clara had bought an apartment in Geneva, invested in a vineyard in Bordeaux, and held discreet shares in a Swiss tech startup. Every move was calculated. Every risk hedged. But Dorian became a variable she could not model. He began suggesting new services, deeper, more tailored experiences. Role-play as therapy. Discretion packages for political clients. Clara hesitated, but Dorian was persuasive, always couching his ideas in language that sounded innovative and protective. Then one day he handed her a dossier. It was a profile of a 19-year-old named Saskia, beautiful, quiet, newly arrived in Paris. She needs a sponsor, Dorian said. I've already tested her boundaries. She's obedient. Clara recoiled. We don't do that. We don't groom girls. Dorian smiled faintly. You don't have to. I've already begun. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. The seed of doubt had been planted. Had she built an empire of empowerment, or a playground for predators? The next morning, she tried calling Saskia. The number rang, then disconnected. Clara didn't know it yet, but Saskia had already disappeared, the first of many. Clara stared out her apartment window for hours after the call failed. The number wasn't just dead, it was wiped. As if Saskia had never existed. A strange hollowness settled into Clara's chest, heavier than guilt, colder than fear. She wasn't just unsettled. She was being played. She hired a private investigator, one of the best in Geneva. Within a week, the PI confirmed what Clara suspected. Saskia's identity had been fabricated. The passport was real, but issued to a ghost. Surveillance footage showed her last known location as a private villa outside Monaco owned by a shell company that, when traced back, pointed to one name in the end, Dorian Vale. Clara confronted him. They met in Zurich, over a dinner he pretended was casual. She arrived without her usual charm. Where is she, Dorian? She asked flatly. He dabbed his lips with a linen napkin. I'm not sure who you're referring to. Don't insult me. Saskia. He set down his knife and fork. You're becoming emotional, Clara. This is exactly what weakens women in power. You built an empire, but you still cling to moral vanity. Do you want to run a sanctuary or a kingdom? Clara's hands trembled beneath the table. I want out of whatever you're building, she said. Dorian's smile faded. I don't think you understand the machinery you've helped create. And you don't get to walk away from it. After that night, everything began to unravel. Her Swiss accounts were flagged for irregularities. Clients pulled away without warning. One of her oldest protégés, Mira, left Paris for a private booking in Morocco and never returned. Clara searched for help. The police offered nothing. She was too clean to be protected, too dirty to be trusted. A journalist she had once confided in, Camille Breton, agreed to look into it. 2 weeks later, Camille was found dead in a supposed car accident. The message was clear. Still, Clara pushed forward. She dug through old files, traced Dorian's network, and found links to a darker world she had worked so hard to avoid. Trafficking routes disguised as elite events, girls passed between investors and encrypted contracts masked as psychological retreats. And the worst part, many of the men involved had once been her clients. They weren't buying fantasy. They were buying control. She gathered what she could: names, bank accounts, aliases. With her PI, she planned a sting. It would take place in Montenegro, at a private conference, where she believed Mira and 2 other missing girls would be. Clara arrived under a false identity, nerves steel-bound, heart ice-cold. For a brief moment, it felt like she was taking back power. But what she didn't know, what no amount of planning could have foreseen, was that Dorian was 3 steps ahead. She never made it out of Montenegro. The last known image of Clara Moreau showed her stepping into a private black SUV outside Podgorica airport. Her scarf fluttered in the wind, her heels clicking purposefully on the tarmac. After that, nothing. Her PI, Leon Weber, waited for her call at a safe house in Kota. It never came. Days turned to weeks. The Montenegrin police, already hamstrung by corruption and intimidation, were uncooperative. Clara Moreau had vanished, no trail, no witnesses, no body. But Leon didn't stop. He leaked what little Clara had gathered to a friend in Europol. He pushed through encrypted networks, traced messages back to compromised servers in Liechtenstein, Albania, and finally, a dark web forum rumored to sell curated experiences for high-tier clientele. Clara's codename, Velour Requiem. A bidding war had taken place. She wasn't just abducted. She was auctioned. The story never made it to the mainstream press. Too much money, too many high places. A few tabloids speculated on the mysterious disappearance of a Parisian art dealer. No mention of Velvet Circle. No mention of Saskia, Mira, or the many others lost in velvet silence. Yet traces of Clara remained. A USB drive, hidden behind a panel in her Montmartre flat, made its way into Leon's hands. Inside were journals, voice memos, client logs, recordings of Dorian's veiled threats. It painted a portrait not of a fallen woman but of a visionary who had danced on the edge of power and tried, in her own flawed way, to humanize it. Leon released a redacted version to a consortium of independent journalists. Whispers became stories. Stories became suspicions. A quiet reckoning began. And yet, Clara remained missing. Her clients denied everything. Dorian disappeared. Saskia's photo circulated in underground forums, now under a new name. Velvet Circle was dismantled. Its members scattered. Some took normal jobs. Others vanished. A few were never meant to survive the business in the first place. But among certain circles whispered among women who had once worn silk masks and diamond collars, Clara became legend. Not just a cautionary tale, but a martyr. The woman who almost turned a broken game into a sanctuary. And though her fate remained uncertain, one truth lingered. She had mastered the art of seduction, the architecture of desire, and the illusion of control until she met the one thing no amount of elegance could tame: the greed of men who believed women were currency. 6 months after Clara's disappearance, a parcel arrived at Leon Weber's doorstep in Geneva. No return address. Just a box wrapped in gray linen, sealed with wax. Inside, a single Polaroid of Clara, looking gaunt but alive, sitting on a bed in what appeared to be a luxury cabin. She was holding a newspaper dated 5 weeks prior. On the back, in faded pencil, a phrase, "Still listening. Still watching." Leon didn't know whether to believe it. The room could have been anywhere. The message, real or forced, sent his mind into spirals. He forwarded the image to Europol's cybercrimes unit. No conclusive trace. The photo's chemical composition suggested it had been developed in Southeast Asia. Rumors swirled among the high-end escorting world. A woman matching Clara's description had been seen in Jakarta, then vanished again. Another claimed to have met a European madam in Bangkok, managing a wellness retreat under heavy surveillance. Nothing concrete. Back in Europe, a digital file began circulating in encrypted feminist forums and whistleblower networks. Titled The Velvet Ledger, it contained audio logs, client lists, and transcripts of Clara's notes. Names of powerful men. Exploits, cover-ups. It read like a requiem, damning, sorrowful, exact. One of the logs ended with her voice, weary yet clear. "They thought we were flowers for their gardens. But we are roots. Deep, tangled, and far more enduring. If you find this, don't look for me. Look for the others. Save them. The Velvet Ledgers spurred quiet investigations, underground documentaries, whispered policy changes in international law. But no arrests. Too much influence, too many offshore curtains. Lyon continued searching. Every lead became a dead end. Yet every so often, a new clue emerged: a monogrammed ring found in a Hong Kong pawn shop, a hotel registry sign sealed. In Croatia, a woman scream on a leaked video with a voice that sounded almost like hers. But Clara Moreau, the woman who crafted an empire of control, fell into darkness, and fought with elegance even at the edge of extinction, was never found. Some say she's dead. Some say she's ruling from the shadows. Some believe she became myth so that others could become free. What remains is her legacy, not perfect, but potent. A whisper in the dark for every girl who thought survival meant silence. They called her Velvet. But the world would remember her as Clara, the woman who tried to master the game, until the game mastered her.